Good afternoon to everyone who's joined us this afternoon. So, as mentioned, we will be touching our E2 area, and then looking at our pre-scene as well to gather and compare, what are the opportunities that we've got to use some of the areas in E2 into our pre-scene. Okay, so let us start with our strategy slide. Okay, let me enlarge this screen. 1 second. Now, we need to understand that with regards to our strategy, what type of questions will be posed. Okay, so already we know that we are operating in an environment with very low margins. We are a middleman, really, right? We connect with our manufacturers and we connect with our clients and we provide a value added service, right? This is the kind of business that we are in. So we have very specialist staff that work with us who are able to add this value to our clients, and our clients are also specialist in nature. Right, it's not your generic masses that we've got. It's not individuals that we've got. We've got very specific high-end specialist clients, right? So in this case, if you look at our current mission and our current objectives, I want to ask one of you, what do you think our mission objective is? Anyone from anyone can answer this question? Have they specifically stated their mission statement or their objectives? Gavin, did you see anything like this?
Sorry, they have not specifically said anything.
Sorry, can't hear you, Gavin.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit louder, please. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's a bit better. Correct. Yeah. Go on.
There is no specific vision and mission statement, but you can gather something from the CEO's report. Where he states that.
So what does the CEO's report state? In specific, is there anything related to the mission, vision, or where they want to go? Sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of. Yeah, I think.
The reason I'm asking this question is because if we know where the company is heading towards, right, the questions that will come to you would be, well, either, yeah, go on, Gavin.
They talk about the growth in HPC, high performance computing contract.
So they are expecting the HPC market to grow.
The growth of HPC contract will not be focused on the business of selling servers. It's just a statement that he's making.
Right. So his statement that he's making is basically looking at the HPC market to grow, correct? So if someone else can quickly look at that statement from the CEO, right? Kumari, if you can just have a look at that, this statement by the CEO, right, while I talk, and then if you can also come up with some comments, what he says. Basically, what they're asking is, what the questions will come up would be, the company is maybe bought over. That's one option, right? Somebody is bidding for this company. A second one might be, we are looking at acquiring another company, right? A third thing might be that we are looking at having a strategic alliance with another company, right? So, and these are again things that will change the course of direction of our existing company. The first thing that you need to look at and see is, well, does it fit with our current strategy, and is there a strategic fit, right? Because you have a set of shareholders to whom you are reporting to, because you are the agent of your principal, who is the shareholder, and therefore you should evaluate these options. These are some things that can come true, right? So it is not about that, okay, there will not be a very clear question saying, well, what is this strategy, what is an emergent strategy? There may not be something like that, right? But more so an application, and then saying, does it fit with the existing strategy, right? So we can have different levels of strategy as well, right? Corporate strategy, business strategy. Business strategy will be linked to the market and the particular business unit, and the functional operational strategy is the operational level, right? So the corporate strategy will drive both business and operational strategies. Remember that, okay? If you can't have operational strategy which is completely different to that, it doesn't link with your corporate strategy, it doesn't work. Now, in our case, are we in, what type of strategy would we follow is also in question, right? Would it be an emergent strategy? Would it be a traditional rational model that we follow, right? Because there is heavy investment that goes on in this industry, but also it is quite short term, the time space, right? Because this is not like a shipbuilding industry. This is not like oil and gas. It is the technology changes very frequently, so we should be prepared for that. Our strategies should be very agile, okay? We can't carry on a pastel 5 forces for like analysis for a very long time. We need to have these things happening in an agile fashion. So to that extent, we just mentioned carrying out analysis in an agile fashion. What are some of the ways that you will carry out this kind of analysis, or what tools can we use? What tools can help Spark Space Management carry out this kind of analysis in a very agile fashion? Any ideas, anyone? So the analysis would be pastel, the 5 forces, SWOTs, you're looking at the position audits. What do you think? Kumari, any views from you? Alan, anything from you? Any ideas? One of the things that we can use is, of course, the systems themselves, right? So in order for Spark Space to operate and to be quite agile, they need information from internal, external sources, right? In order to make very quick decisions, and if they want to make decisions that will change the direction, how they're working, right, to change their corporate strategy. If they want certain things to take place, they cannot do a very manual traditional way of analysis, because they need to get information from, they're in the high end cutting edge industry, right, the technology industry, so they need to know what's going on in the industry. They need information, so they need to have these alliances with other key players in the market, plus they need to use technology themselves quite well in order to craft and be agile with their rational model of strategic planning. Any views on this particular statement I made? So when we look at a value chain, what do you think? The value chain, will it be applicable here? Gavin, what do you think? Do you think the value chain will be applicable here? Can we use it?
I think it could be applicable
Yes.
in terms of, I think, see, what does value chain?
You need to talk a bit louder, Gavin. I can't hear you.
Yeah. See, I think the value chain will be applicable. It could be applicable
Right.
in terms of, say,
Yes, because it could be in the sense they are looking at how to perform more effectively, efficiently in each of the functions that they work in, and provide the end product service to the customer, right? And they also need to look at what is the customer's value chain and how do you fit into that, right? Because look at who are some of their customers. Can you tell me? One is in the weather area. Who is the other one?
they have payment gateway customers. They have other forecasting companies.
Correct. So either the value chain, or they need to also understand what is the balance scorecard KPIs of their customers, right? Because the payment gateway, weather forecast, what are their KPIs for in their business? Because if you look at their customer KPIs, is the thing that will really drive their business, right? So we need to understand what they are, so that we can actually structure our product services to facilitate that, isn't it? Because we are going to be true partners with these people, right? So by doing that, you will create that value for your client. Yeah. So of course then we have our evaluating options. That goes without saying: suitability, acceptability, feasibility, and sustainability, right? We also will go into there are for and against, but I'm not going to stay here for long. I just want to go through the next section. right? The balanced scorecard we have gone through, right? Now, there is something about they're looking at resource positioning approach and resource-based approach, right? In what they're looking at is resource-based approach suggests that the environment is too uncertain for this to work, and that competitive advantages comes from the possession of unique resources. Do you think this is true for us? Is this correct? In my view, I think we are in this space, right? Because our resources, we are providing a specialist service, right? How can we differentiate? We can differentiate by providing that unique services, and that's coming from our resources, isn't it? So I think this is an area that we are in as well, okay? Because we are looking at, if we don't have the proper resources, then we are going to get into a big problem, because we cannot offer the services. We need to be innovative, right? In order to be innovative, we have to get the correct resources and provide the correct culture and make it conducive for the people to become innovative, come up with new things, in order for them to make the customers' activities much better, right? So, and also, if you see in your pre-scene, there are 5 vacancies, right, that they have put out. That says something, right? They're going to ask you questions around this for sure, okay? They're not going to waste 5 pages on positions unless they're going to ask you some questions, right? So definitely there is going to be something around this, okay? So we have got transaction approach, and we spoke about the value chain some time back as well. And let me go into another area which can be quite useful for you, which is change management and project management, okay? So let me go into that space. 1 second. Before that, I want to stop here for a second. What opportunities do we have to use the pestle factors and competitive advantages? What opportunities do you think there is in our case study? What are the opportunities? What do you think? Alan? What about trust? What do you think? Trust is not there. So what about Wilfred? What do you think, Wilfred? What opportunities do we have in our case study to use the pestle? Kumari, any views from you?
Anju, this Spark space is operating in a IT or like IT industry.
Correct.
So I think the biggest opportunity is the available. I mean, there are so many opportunities in the market itself for them to grow. So I think it's one major thing that they can use as an opportunity, and to can develop their business into other clients, as well as they can find more clients basically.
So in this sense, I'm going to use a little bit of another, I'm going into the technical space, business space here of your competencies. So what you're saying is, from an Ansoff matrix perspective, you're looking into market penetration. Correct? You're looking into market penetration. What you're saying is, analyze your current market. There is plenty of opportunity. Maybe look at the current market, see what opportunities are there that you can grab, right? And that's one. Anything else? And we can also, yes, Gavin.
Yeah, they're talking about the opportunities in cloud computing.
Mm-hmm.
Now that could be, see, cloud computing could be, you will have customers in different jurisdictions.
Correct.
Outside the country, inside the country. So then, Pestel would be, I think, fine. So first you do your hands-off metrics. You understand where you want to go within the country, outside the country.
Yeah.
New clients. So then you do your festival to understand what is the, finally you would have done a festival maybe for your local environment.
Yes.
To understand political, economical, then legal, because there could be a lot of factors. So when you're dealing with information from other countries, they have their own regulations in terms of, now take for instance Saudi Arabia. There's a very strict, for the financial service sector, there's a very strict regulation on the information being moved out of the country.
Correct.
So are we, in contravening any local regulations, local laws, things like that. So you can use your festival in that context.
Yes. So that is a good one, where you mention that we are thinking of cloud computing. On the face of it, it looks a very lucrative and a new area that we can get into. But you need to consider the other aspects, which is, when you analyze the pestle, when you look into the market, right? Even in the market, certain industries, they do not put that information into the cloud. They don't want to do that for regulatory compliance reasons, right? So that needs to be considered as well. So as soon as, another opportunity for the examiner to ask you is about this new technologies, right? And they are interested in going ahead with this, and they think there is a big market, right? However, there are certain other risks and issues that needs to be addressed, right? And also, say for example, another something that was discussed just last week with me was, in the Middle East, in the UAE, we are not able to use cloud computing to that very effectively, because we don't have the cloud environment in the UAE itself, because there is a physical cable that connects, right? A physical cable needs to get connected, the undersea cable, and then from there on it gets onto the cloud. So there is a latency, as well as if the cable does not work for some reason or the other, our basically our whole infrastructure breaks down. So apparently the company Alibaba is setting up this big cloud computing environment in the UAE, right? So it's an interesting thing, where even though it depends on the technology in that particular region, right, that needs to be considered as well. So even if you're thinking of going overseas, you need to consider technology in that particular region that we're planning on going. Okay, that's another area where you can use the pestle. You have the opportunity to use the pestle and the Ansoff. Okay, let's go to another area. Okay, now I want to talk about the stakeholders, right? The stakeholders, basically, this particular diagram, Mendelow's matrix, will come in in whatever you do, right? Why? Because if you're going in for an investment, right, there will be stakeholders there that needs to be considered. The stakeholders that get impacted with this investment in a positive, negative manner, as well as the investors, the project sponsors, right? The government, if it is involving the government, external parties, right? Depends what the project is. If you're working with the payment gateway guys, there'll be a lot of regulatory requirements, and that may come in, and you may need to deal with these certain people, right? So another aspect is, if you're looking at redundancies, if you're looking at mergers, if you're looking at going into another country, definitely the stakeholders will play a major role, and you need to understand who is the most influential, high power, high interest, right? Who are these? Like in quadrant D, right? And these guys are key players. Even though you come up with a very good idea, if you don't lobby with these guys, and if you don't really convince them, right, this idea may never go ahead. Okay, so as a result, it's important that you find out who your key players are, and then you have a communication strategy, right? A communication strategy. Now, any areas that you think where the stakeholder, there would be different stakeholders and playing a major role, is there something that you guys can think of? Any area? What do you think? Kumari, what do you think? Any scenario here that's in the pre-scene where you think there'll be quite a lot of stakeholders getting involved, or there are some key issues that may be there where you need to involve certain stakeholders? Gavin?
I think there are a lot of areas. Okay, on the staffing side, they talk about replacing cobots because they have a semi-automated line.
Correct.
This could be maybe redundancies, or people having the perception of redundancy.
Right.
You need to manage those stakeholders in an appropriate manner.
Yes.
Then new employment. Now they're talking about employing XYZ number of people.
Yes.
Now, it's a little bit far out actually, but existing employees, you need to, if you have people in the rank who could be promoted, but you are taking a person from outside.
Yes.
Then there again, these are stakeholders in the context of internal staff. You're talking about a project appraisal if you want into expansion cloud business.
Right.
So there again, stakeholders could be the regulators. You need to manage those people. Then your internal stakeholders, your shareholders, what is it? People who, if it's an investment, you think how like doing the FAPS model, is it really going to give them a return? So if you do anything, I think defending the stakeholder model will be applicable for anything particular.
Correct. So you can see in our case there could be a lot of investments projects coming through, right? And your your E3, E2 rather, has quite a number of area, 2 sections I believe dedicated to projects, and then one related to change management. Okay, so definitely, and this case study has a lot of opportunities for new projects to come in, right? That time, you need to identify who the key stakeholders are in that particular project, right? That's important that you do that identification, right? And then you see, well, how are we going to manage? Yeah. And like you say, even when it comes to cloud computing, the regulators and some of the, not only within the government, but others as well from professional bodies, they may also need to come in, okay, because they will play a big role. So the good thing is, if you know this, so this model is quite important, right? Learn this model, because you can apply this in any context. That's what I want to emphasize. You can you can apply this in any context, right? This is the diamond model, where identifies 4 determinants of national competitive advantage on an industry basis. And this may be useful if you're thinking of going into a different country as well, right? Well, the firm's strategy, structure and rivalry, the demand conditions, right? How are they? What about the factor conditions? Is it available? Is it good? Is it advantageous? So for example, if I'm thinking of setting up a company in the Middle East, right? It could be any country in the Middle East. Which country would you choose? And why? And that will answer this diamond model, right? That will say, this is the reasoning. Okay, so for example, if you, Kumari, if I can ask you, if you're going to set up a company, what are the things that you will be looking into when you're thinking of going into a country?
I will be looking into the political stability, because that will depend, that will have a major impact on the currency exchange rates,
right,
as well as their support towards investments.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be like a major thing that I will consider. Also, like the labor cost in that particular country. Something like that.
Right. So you can see where the factor conditions come into play here, right? Whether we have advanced factor conditions in that particular industry, and then we also look at, from a country perspective, well, can we manage there, right? Can we work in that space, right? Now, if I look at, let's going into another area which I want to touch upon. What do you think our current competitive environment is like? Is it very competitive in nature? What do you think?
I think it's pretty competitive, because even in the pricing, it says that the profit margins are quite less. So
yes. So in a competitive environment, it is important that we work and we look at each activity that we do and see, does it add value, right? So what are some of the tools that we can use to understand whether, to analyze our costs? What are some of the tools that we can use? I'm touching on P2 now a little bit. What are some of the tools? Gavin, any idea? Any tools that we can use?
Anu, what is the question?
I want to find out, in order for us to stay competitive, right?
Okay.
We need to analyze our cost and reduce our cost, then give a competitive pricing, right? So what are some of the tools that we can use, right, in order for us to ascertain our costs and to see, do we really need to use, do we really need this? So some of the things that we can do is activity-based costing, right? So does this particular activity add value, right? So you need to understand whether certain thing adds value or not, or if it doesn't, then eliminate it. Okay, so we need to do quite a bit of management accounting. We can use management accounting techniques here, right? Product profitability analysis as well, to understand how profitable certain products are, how whether certain activities add value or not. Okay, now they say that we are the middle person. Do we actually have inventory? Do we have a lot of inventory that we keep, or do we buy things only when we want from our supplier? If we are keeping inventory, then we might need to look at just in time, right? That's another good technique that we can use, right? And also look at quality circles, total quality managed, TQM, right? Because you look at the defects, how much defects are there currently with what we provide to our clients. Should we actually track it and then link it to their performance as well, right? So there is a mechanism, there's transparency in order to see actually the cost is increasing because we're not providing good quality or not, right? So these are tools in management accounting that we can use in order to be competitive, right? So that's one area that I wanted to touch on. Any views on this?
Yeah. See, Anju, in the SWOT analysis, they say low margins on products due to increasing competition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at these guys' margins, they're roughly about net margins of around 21%, and operating margins are for roughly around 34%. And if you look at their competitors also, so they are in the same range,
Mm-hmm.
20, low 20s and all that. So, like you said, you do an activity because they have 4 distinct business areas.
Correct.
So the retail consultancy, information. So maybe one of these areas has a low profit margin.
Yes.
And then the others must be having. So if you do activity-based, cost, or you do an analysis on the divisions of products.
Yes.
That could eliminate maybe not a non-viable business, but maybe a loss-making business. But because of the other products generating margin.
Yes. What you're saying is you are due to the very correct. So what you're saying is analyze each stream separately and see by its own can it sustain, correct?
Exactly, because maybe one segment might be making a loss.
Exactly.
But maybe
true.
You can't give away that segment because that might be a
loss leader. Sorry, you're not clear, Gavin.
Yeah. Pardon?
You are breaking up.
No, what I said is maybe you do a Can you hear me now?
Still it's breaking up. So I
Hello?
think I know what you're trying to say. What you're saying is let us do an analysis for each particular stream and see, is it actually a loss leader? Is it making a loss? Can we take on that loss? Are we keeping that area because we need to have it in order for us to gain business in the other areas. Sometimes strategically we have lost leaders because we need to have that. Now, is there even so, but instead of just saying, yeah, it's going to make a loss, we accept that, look at ways of how we can eliminate certain activities there in order to turn it into a break even or into even profitable, right? What activities can we do? Right? But in order to do this, you need to analyze each stream. That is the most important thing. Yeah? So another area, let us look. Now, how will this come about? Organizational flexibility, role of the manager, relationships in organizations, right? Key concepts in management is one area that you guys have, right? I think this will play a role as well because of they have put in 5 vacancies, and also you're in a organization that needs innovation. If you're trying to go to a different country, what type of skills, what type of management skills do you require? Okay. Again, it's the theories of leadership. They're not going to ask you a direct question, but they will be looking at, they may have a sentence there, and for you to talk to that sentence and basically saying, what does it mean, right? Now, if I go into the other areas, we know this is what the managers do, but when you look at the scientific management theories, of course, it was a very different time. Okay, a different time, different types of people working in organizations, and this is during basically industrial revolution time, right? So factory workers. Now we are working, in this case, we are working with professionals who need to come up with very creative solutions. So their incentives will not only be linked to pay, right? Pay may not be the only incentive that these people require. That's something that you need to bear in mind. Okay. And then they have mentioned Drucker, which is quite recent. And then they look at Elton Mayo, again quite recent. They look at into the human relationships, right? More into what the humans need, what they require, what motivates them. Okay, and that's what the psychological needs talk about, and more into Mintzberg as well. But again, this is about that particular situation, and we have to talk about and the thing is, your situation from one country to the other may change, right? It may change. The way you manage and act in UAE would be different to that of if you're working with a team of people in China or in Vietnam or in one country in Africa, right? Because the culture is different. So the way you act and lead these people may be very different. So if you're going into a different country, you need to keep that in mind. Okay. Let us go into one other area before. So if I look at the spectrum of management style, where do you think we will stay in this? Gavin, what do you think? Is it more authoritarian task or democratic relationship? What do you think? Kumari, what do you think?
I think it's a hybrid of both. that you stuck in the middle. You have a very. Can you hear me, Anju?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, I think way is towards the democratic relationship style, because you have professionals who want flexibility. See, there could be two types, because your factory line, you have, that would be a more authoritarian, task oriented. It's like terrorism. You have a very clear cut rules, regulations on the flow. But on to your development side, you will have a flexible way of managing. You give autonomy to managers, because when you're developing new maybe software or hardware for HPC computing, you might need to give flexibility to the staff. So I think a hybrid of democratic and authoritarian would be will be practiced at this organization.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any other views? Any other views? Yeah, depends if they have not mentioned that they're going into manufacturing per se, right? They do some, they take this stuff from the people, from these manufacturers, unless they do some value added activities to those components itself, right? It doesn't seem like they're doing full-on manufacturing, is it? Am I correct?
I think so.
Yes.
It's not a pure per se manufacturing
Yes.
line as such, but I don't know. Did they talk about using cobots? So that's where the confusing part.
Yes. Yeah.
Or do they want to move to a big time manufacturing? Maybe these are the questions that
Correct.
will come.
They might be wanting, there's a lot of things where they're kind of hinting, on the manufacturing space. You're right. So in that context, we may have that opportunity to say, well, certain things, if you're in the factory flow, you're manufacturing something, you're looking at, the learning curve. If you remember, the learning curve is important. So you need to basically, have that manufacturing flow and go into kind of an authoritarian, task-oriented mode in order for you to achieve the goals and the KPIs of that particular factory. But when you go into the other side of it, it may be the more democratic relationship that is required, because you're looking at innovation, dealing with customers, and so on, right? Now, if I go into, I want to go into change management. So we may come across some communication, negotiation, and conflict as well, right? If you have, if you're looking at some unrest, right? Especially when you're talking about large workforces, if you're looking at going into the manufacturing space, or if you're having some kind of manufacturing plant, you're looking at maybe labor unrest, or how do you deal with it? Okay, that's again negotiation and conflict takes place. Now, what I would like to do at this point is we do have 1 second. It's not that. So change management is one thing, and thereafter I have got 2 other chapters which talk about project management. But now I want to give you a question, right? I'll give you 10 minutes to think about and plan your answer. Okay, so let me give this to you. Can you see? You might remember this, Gavin. So I will give you 5 minutes from now, so 10 minutes from now for you to structure your answer. So please type it in your computers, and so that you'll be able to share it. I think it's 10 minutes now. So are you guys ready? Wilfred, are you able to share a screen with us? Hi Wilfred, can you hear me? Are you able to share your screen with us? What about Suchi? If you're not able to share the screen, or at least you're able to talk, give your answer to this. Suchi, anything from you? Kumari, what about you? Did you attempt this or not? Okay, Suchi, you just noted the points down. Are you able to talk to us or no? What about you, Kumari? Did you attempt it?
I'm trying, Anju. Actually, I'm finding it a bit difficult to
to structure it.
Sorry, answer. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Gavin, let's see how you go about it.
Anju.
Yes.
Yeah. Anju, the first part I was a bit stuck. I started on the second part.
Right.
There are two parts to this question.
So let us first see how many questions we've got here, right? So the first part is, how can we implement equality and diversity practices when recruiting staff to cover new all-day rosters, right? I've spelled it wrong. Rosters. Further, we need to assure that the practices have been correctly followed. Now there we have two questions. Am I right? So did you identify those two questions? And if you go to the third paragraph, what it's saying is a company is an equal opportunity employer. The applicants from all ethnic and disability groups are encouraged to apply. The third thing is they're asking you whether this statement is fine. Okay, so how did you identify these? Did you identify? Gavin, did you manage to identify these 3 questions?
I identified 2 questions.
Okay, fine. Right.
The second one was comment on whether the statement of disability groups is
Yes.
advertly sensible.
Yes.
I haven't finished my answer, but I started to a certain extent.
Right.
What I said is statement of employing persons from diverse ethnic groups and disability groups would be considered sensible from an ethical perspective. Yeah, sensible. From
Right.
an ethical perspective, it is considered sensible. However, depending on the local regulatory requirements, there could be legal implications if local labor regulations have certain restrictions on discrimination.
Right.
CIMA
Okay.
ethics,
So the first
After that-
thing what I want you to do is when you're answering, first and foremost, put in 3 headings or as 4 or 5 headings depending on the number of questions they have asked. So the first task for you is to identify the number of questions. And did you manage to identify the number of questions? Were you able to get that?
Yes, I did.
Right, great. So that is the first hurdle, right? Once we get that sorted out, then comes you answering. Because as the examiner has mentioned, many a time people have not answered the full question, right? They have not identified the requirements, and maybe they've answered only 1 out of the 3. Yeah, so that is important. The second one goes into now to say how are we going to tackle, right? How can we implement equality and diversity practices when recruiting staff? Now, recruiting staff and equality and diversity that they're asking, right? How can we maintain this, implement it? Any ideas from you, Anne? From past experience, how would you do it?
It would be mainly to set the job description and the qualifications in general to be applied for the role that you're looking for, regardless of nationality, age, personal circumstance, status.
Correct. Yes.
So setting up the job role and job description as appropriate to the job, regardless of what personal circumstances are, is one thing. And communicating these to either line managers or recruitment agencies, if you're using some, that these are your criteria.
So the emphasis is on the role and the competencies required. That's where your emphasis is on.
Yeah, on competencies, qualification, and experience.
Yes. And then the next part is, how can we implement equality and diversity practices, right? Now, one thing we are saying is, you need to emphasize your competencies. One thing is that, but how do you implement equality and diversity practices?
If I apply, especially here in the Middle East, where the organizations are very diverse, it will be giving equal opportunities to all employees based on their hierarchy in the company. For example, giving trainings to all levels, say admin level or sales level, giving the same opportunity for all that you are for all that are in that level, regardless of again their nationalities.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things would be that you need to mention is that the biasness does not come into the recruitment, right? Sometimes this happens. Unconscious bias does take place, and we need to be able to take this out. So the first thing would be irrespective of gender, nationality, religion, whatever it is, they should not even come into your to the resume, right? When you're recruiting a person, none of these should be there as area. I mean, here I know it's there, but a lot of the other countries in the western part of the world, it's not there, right? It doesn't say your religion, doesn't state your nationality, it doesn't say your race. If you're Australian, you're all Australian. Of course, if you're not a permanent resident or an Australian, you can't, or a citizen, you can't work there. That is given, right? But otherwise, you're Australian. That's it. So similarly, the personal things, the age, etc., is not there in your resume. So you can't be biased. Photographs should never come in there. Never should say whether they're a man or a woman. It's not required. But maybe from the name they could pick up, but still. The thing is, by taking those out, you are eliminating that unconscious biasness coming through, right? And then you're focusing more on competencies and what you require. Yeah. So that yes.
Anju, on the first part, now they say please provide your thoughts on how can we implement the equality and diversity practices in recruiting staff. Then recruiting staff in simple way. Further, we need to assure that practices have been correctly followed. So this is what you're talking about.
How would you ensure that this has been followed?
That is the second question.
Yes, correct. How do you
assure? The first one is, what are the practices that we will adopt?
Yes.
How can we implement equality?
Yes.
So should these be bound in the company, say in your HR terms of reference or something like that?
Correct.
Those which I see, when I send a CV to a company, do I say, would I say I don't want your gender? Because I would send a CV. Or I would apply. So, okay, unless there is an application in a newspaper, they'll ask you what are you please send in your CV.
Yes.
Now, would I say in that, I'm not well versed in human resources, but when I send a CV, I would say, maybe I would put my snap, would not put up my snap, or that's my personal prerogative, but I would send it with my age, gender, and
that is so in the Middle East that they require all this information. Certain companies, they insist, but not in the Western world. They will not. I mean, they're not. It's not legal for you to provide a photograph, right?
Correct, but I'm asking from a company's perspective.
Yeah.
From an organization's perspective, if I want to have equality and diversity, would you have to have terms, see, maybe the culture might be that, but do you have to embed that into some regulation companies? Now, like, is there an HR policy in place? By bringing that aspect,
right. So, right. Okay. So what you're saying is, in this context, now there's one thing is to have the recruitment policy in place so that there is no unconscious biasness that comes through, and you only focus on the competencies of the individuals and the activities that are involved, right? But the second part of it may be that the company has to achieve a target of 50-50 male female,
I was just about to bring that, because
Yes.
in this part of the world, Saudi Arabia specifically,
right.
there are for recruitment, they are bringing ladies,
Yeah, I mean, even yeah.
Take expected out, because there is a bias there. You take out expected from the equation. If
Yes.
you take Saudi itself,
Yes.
there again they have certain diversity. So those are brought in by regulation, by labor laws. They say.
Yeah.
So shouldn't those be embedded in maybe HR policies, documentation?
Yeah.
Should I
Now,
bring
what
that into
what we have to bear in mind is when we are doing, especially answering a question like this, you need to be aware the exam is set in the UK, right? So
understand.
it's a UK environment, Western environment that we have to answer to, and they will be, unless they specifically mention the country is, this particular company is going into the Middle East, and then then it's easy, it becomes easy for you to write in a Middle Eastern context. But when you're answering something like this, you have to be very careful. You need to answer in a Western context and give that answer. Yeah, and because, however, to your point, there is a bit of a dilemma, because you may choose people who are, you take on that unconscious biasness, you look at the competencies, and you recruit people that are, that are suitable. But then again, you might be you may have to achieve the targets of this 50-50 male female, right? There again, there's this then it's a dilemma, actually, right? Maybe you've chosen a man into this particular role because that's the he fitted that competencies pretty well. However, when you look at your male female targets that you've got, it doesn't work well, right? So there is a dilemma there. I mean, you don't have to give a definite answer in this way. So you need to say there is a dilemma, which is true, okay, and state that definitely there is a question, and there, companies do struggle with situations like this. So that's what the examiner is looking for as well. And also, you need to, now we are talking about the 5 vacancies that are there, right? So looking at the 5 vacancies, now I look at the and looking at the 5 vacancies, as well as then you look at, they're talking about a roster, right? And how did you answer the last part of the question? Because what they say is, well, we are inviting all the disability groups to apply for this as well. Will it be practical? Can they, basically what you need to come up is to say, well, is it practical? This type of, first thing is this 5 vacancies. Can people with disabilities manage, right? That needs to get, you need to, before you put out this advert, you need to, now you don't need to come to a conclusion. What you need to do is to say, there are these 5 roles. However, we need to consult a specialist in order to find out, a consultant, to see whether these roles can be done by people with multiple disabilities, right? Is it, because people will apply because it says you invited them, but then again you may reject it. So then it's not ethical, right? You should have never put it in the first place, right? So the second part is you're looking at rostering people, right? Will that work with people having disabilities? Has anybody spoken about that? Anne, did you mention anything on that?
No, but like you said, looking at the job descriptions, there are some of these roles you can't practically have people with disabilities. For example, they need to go drive a car to visit clients or be in the manufacturing line. So in that respect, you could already say, somebody, a blind person, for example, could not possibly carry out the role.
Correct. So what you can do is also look at, put in the phrase health safety, health and safety. So under that, it may not be practical as well. So basically, you need to bring out this kind of thoughts to the examiner and say, it may not be a good thing that this advert goes out like this because have we consulted the health authorities, have we consulted certain consultants in order to find out whether these people can work in these roles or not. So it's a difficult question because, again, something that is not straight away from your textbook, isn't it? It's not there anywhere in the textbook, but it's basically questioning and exploring to see, how do you answer this as a manager, right? And in a way that is advantageous and, which in a way that is appropriate for this particular company. Yeah. So that's any comments, Gavin?
I marked the health and safety issue, but I think the key point is actually look at the 5 vacancies. I answered it as a generic question. So because that day when we were talking to Sandy, I was thanked by that. You take the moral high ground. That's what I look at it.
Right.
If you look at the vacancies and if you look at the role,
yes,
I think there could have been a clear-cut answer. You start saying that yes, if you look at the roles, these are not suitable but then you have the questions the applicants from all ethnic and disability groups. So ethnic groups you should be able to. But I think the commenter with the statement on disability group.
Correct. Yeah, and the disability, we don't know. Yes, yeah. The disability may be anything. To what extent? What is the disability? Exactly. We don't know.
Exactly. So if it's just a partial disability in terms of mobility.
Correct.
Maybe a person who do customer service and all that. Yes, but then I think you need to inclinate it to the five vacancies that you have.
Exactly.
Then I think you could have got at one itself you could have got a snapshot saying that these roles technically do not fit from the face of it. However, whether you can bring in a special consultant to view it whether these things are possible. If it is possible, then you need to understand, assess the cost implications because health and safety issues are there. If it's on the factory floor, toilets, so on and so forth.
Correct.
These things need to be addressed.
Yes.
However, from the start, you feel that this is not a sensible thing, but this needs further explored. It could be further explored by whether you are getting professional help in terms of this thing.
Exactly.
If we do it, maybe we would have, if we add to a corporate social responsibility, it would add to, the profile of the company as an equal employer.
Yes.
So these are on the positive side.
Correct. So, Kumari, I just want to ask you the question. You found it very difficult to kind of get your thoughts with this question. So once we had, once now we have discussed this, do you see how the question will flow, how the answer will flow?
Yeah, Anju, I'm getting an idea. So
yes.
It's been quite some time that I've started writing a real answer. Because,
yes.
So that's what.
Yeah, it might help, I mean, all of us to actually start, give a full answer, sit and write an answer for 30 minutes for this and see how you go, because that's important that you start practicing. And as mentioned, we first need to, just to again reiterate, that first we need to identify how many questions are there, put it down first. Don't get carried away, start writing on the first point itself. Make sure that you identify the number of questions, put those as headings, and then look at, well, they've spoken about your current vacancies, right? We've never even mentioned anything. So get your current vacancies. What are these current vacancies that there are? Okay, then go on linking this to the answer, right? And see, well, how can we answer it appropriately, right? Because otherwise we may lose marks in this one. Yeah, right. Now I want to go into your yes.
Before we move on to
yes.
say, for instance, in UK and say Australia,
right.
They have. I understand. I know it is market is very open in terms of recruitment, like equal opportunities, and so on and so forth. But do they have quotas on say indigenous people or something like that? Are there things like that?
Indigenous people, they give extra allowances, extra stuff for the company if you recruit, right? But they do not say you need to have X amount. There is no quota as such. Even for the male, female, there is no quota as such, but companies do put out this information because that's important. But I know in Scandinavian countries as well as Canada, that there is a legal requirement, and they need to, it's like, statutory requirement, like you publish your accounts, you need to publish not only just the male, female, but then at what seniority level as well, because one of the things that companies do is hire a whole load of call center females and then manage to sort that male female thing in the company, which is not right, of course.
So when you're answering the question number one,
yeah,
we can bring in these, they depend, statutory requirements should be met.
If there is, but the thing is, what you have to say is it is a dilemma, right?
Yeah.
You may not get somebody. Let's say, as per the quota, we need to recruit more females. However, per competency and the number of people who have applied, we have only got males, or we have got more males, and the best candidate for the job is a male. Now it's a dilemma, right? It's a big issue for the company. How do we manage this? Actually, something like this did happen with Microsoft. One of my friends in the Middle East, he was in Shell. He was selected to Microsoft. He didn't get the letter. He got the phone call on a Thursday evening saying, well, congratulations, you got the job. So, we're going to send you a letter tomorrow or so. And so he was all happy and etc., etc. He gets another call on Sunday. Fortunately, he had not resigned from Shell, saying, I'm really sorry, but due to this thing, we're not able to take you. We'll have to take a female. Right? So that's a problem. Companies do face this problem. Yeah. Okay. So let me go into the threats. I want to talk about that. And I'm going to give you some questions on those as well. The risk register more than the threats. Right. Now, as mentioned, these guys nowadays, they quite, they provide us with a risk register with the SWOT analysis. So when they provide all this information, it's quite, they're asking us something much more than, previously it was like, okay, find out the top 5 risks or whatever it is, what are the key risks, because it's not stated there explicitly. Now they're explicitly stating the likelihood, impact, and the score is also stated, right? Now, Gavin, can you tell me what type of model can we use to structure any answer for a risk register, and any particular model that you can use?
To assess the risk?
To analyze the risk and to mitigate the risk.
Tara?
Yes, the TARA model can be used. Then that is, what does TARA stand for, Gavin?
Transfer, avoid, accept. Reduce.
Yes, yeah. So the TARA model is something that we can use, and to see, if you don't have this model, what I will do actually is, whether you have it or not, I'm gonna have this available, make it available for you, the TARA model, and then there is the CIMA risk analysis model as well, right? That is quite useful. And then the COSO, right? I will put, I think in my models, it's already there, but I'll have a look at it and ensure that's there. But the thing is, now we look at from top down, right? We've got quite a few risks here, risks related to business, related to human resources, and claims and litigation, right? Now, in business risks, we have 2, right, which is scored high, right? And then we have got 1 in claims and litigation. Yeah. So these red ones are a bit of a worry for us. One thing is aggressive pricing strategy from competitors. Manage costs carefully in order to match competitors' pricing. Sound relationship with hardware vendors should help. This whole thing. What are the possibilities that we've got to manage this risk or mitigate this risk? And any ideas on this? How can we mitigate this risk? We're talking about pricing. There's a lot of competition here.
It would be a lot of close monitoring of competitor prices and supplier prices as well, and striking a balance on what your acceptable profit margins are and how can you adjust when things move in different directions. For example, if your competitors are increasing prices, are you able to increase prices? What does that do to your market, to your customer base, current customer base?
Yes.
Or is there possibility to look for alternative vendors that would possibly supply lower costs if competitors are pricing their items lower? It must be because they've found more cost-effective suppliers, so you have to go in the same direction. So basically it is close monitoring of both competitors and supplier pricing.
Yes, monitoring is one thing, and if someone else or you can give me, what actions could we take upon this? What should we do? From a strategic point of view, what can we do to manage our prices or our cost rather?
We could look into removing non-value adding activities,
Yeah.
and so that the cost of those activities will be eliminated, and the cost will be actually of what are the value added activities only. So that in that way we could manage and reduce our costs.
Okay. Anyone else?
Energy consumption, they talk about.
Yes. So we are looking again, yes, at different areas where we can look at reducing the cost, isn't it? So energy consumption is one area where you can that's another good area. But then what we are also doing is value added service, right? So are we able to provide a bundled service where the pricing is very different? In a sense, it's like the concept of blue ocean strategy, right? Now, what is blue ocean strategy is the story behind it is, if you have seen the Cirque du Soleil, right? The circus. Now, the circus, it has been there for a very long time, right? A circus, and it's not something that was very people were not interested in it, right? Later on, because they had other things to amuse themselves, right? And it was going out of favor. And the other thing was they were using a lot of animals, and that was not, it was expensive, and the ethical aspects of it were there as well. So this was not a very popular activity at all. But Cirque du Soleil came up with this the act, and they completely revolutionized this whole aspect of the circus, right? They had very beautiful outfits. There were no animals, beautiful music, the lighting, and of course they charged premium pricing as well. It was not an expensive, it was not a cheap thing, right? So, and they also brought in the diversity of different nationalities, and they presented it beautifully. So they competed in something called the blue ocean strategy. Go to an area where you do not compete on price, but you compete on things that add value and that the customer is looking for, right? So we certainly need to look at areas where we need to reduce cost and evaluate areas where we can definitely have a reduction in cost. But we also need to look at areas where we can add value, and where the customer doesn't look at price as a first thing when they look at some vendors, right? Any views on this, Kumari? Alan, yes, you have raised the hand. What is it? Any question that you want to ask?
I think what we can see, especially in the CS report, there's a statement that they are in pursuit of HPC contracts. So
correct.
In that case, if you have a long-term contract, let's say, for example, rather than a one-time service, then you can at least properly plan the resources that you have, because you already know what services you need to do in the future, or what materials you're going to supply for a specific company. So I think that's one area where we can look at in terms of managing the cost going forward.
Right. So you think you're saying let us get into a long-term relationship with these people rather than a transactional relationship.
Yeah, that's one thing, because if you have a long-term relationship for your customers, then you can also use that to have a long-term relationship with your suppliers. So,
Correct.
And a comment that is in there is sound relationship with hardware vendors should
Yes.
help, and you can have a sound relationship even if you deal with them a short term, but the possibility of having a sound relationship is much greater if you're having a long-term relationship with your vendors, right?
Right. Yeah. So you as a middleman, what would you be doing in the sense you are the partner, right? You're a partner to your vendor, your partner to your customer, partner to with your supplier, and you kind of bring these two together. And basically what you need to communicate to your supplier is your customer strategy, right, and their vision, because they need to come up with products that will suit your customer, isn't it? Any other views? What about Gavin? Any other views from you?
No.
Right. The next one, when it comes to business, is the security. Right? Security, and what are some of the areas that you will be looking into when it comes to security? Because you are working with a payment gateway provider as well as a weather forecast. They provide another customer of yours provides weather forecasting. So, and these are specialist people. What sort of security do you think you need to look into? And especially these days, it is of high importance. Kumari, any view from you? And what about you?
As an IT company, you probably want to make sure that you are up to date with all relevant security measures for your industry. What are the new software that people employ to protect their data. Also, what backups do you have, and what protocols do you have when breaches are happen? So firstly, one is you know that you have ensure that you have the software to prevent any breaches. Second is that you have a backup in place so that when breaches occur, you know the protocols, and being basically having the information or the procedures to answer these two questions.
Right. Okay. Anything else, Gavin? So if I'm looking, yeah, go on.
I said nothing to add.
Right. So you need to look at, if you're an IT company providing services, there are several areas you need to look at from security angle, right? What do you provide? Let's look at what do you provide these clients of yours. Gavin, what kind of services do you provide?
You're talking with Sparkspace?
Yes, Sparkspace. Yep.
Yeah. Consultancy services, installation, maintenance, can be from the pre-sales side, identifying the client's requirements, then providing him consultancy services.
So you go into installation, maintenance, assembly. Right? So what sort of things are there here? What are the components that's there to provide this kind of services? Who do you need? Yes, Anne, go ahead.
Professionals.
So you provide the physical hardware
Yes.
and the maintenance of it, so running it, ensuring that everything works, and
The software as
yeah, the
well.
software. Yeah.
And a third thing, the most important thing, is the humans, right? So you have hardware coming into play, software, and the humans, right? Now, when I look at security, you look at security from these angles. Company is there. What services do the company provide? Then you look at what components, what are the things, how are we providing this, right? How are we providing it? And it's provided through this way, right? Hardware, software, and then you look at our humans, right? And then you look at, okay, so hardware, have you got a very good partner that provides this? Software, is it in-house? Is it from a third party? Right? How secure is that? How reliable is that? Because we are providing this to our clients, right? And then on a regular maintenance basis, you're looking at, well, if you're saying the data, how secure is it? Disaster recovery, right? The uptimes you need to consider, and of course the people, the personnel that you employ here, what about them? How do we ensure that these people who come into contact with our clients and their data are people that we can trust? What legal recourse is available, right? How do we check them? How do we validate? What securities? How do we, for example, when it comes to working with children in Australia, you need to be cleared. They run through your files. They do a police record check first, and then they clear you. You need to have something called a blue card. Only if you have this card, certain organizations, even if it's voluntary, doesn't matter, only if you have this card, you can work with children, right? And you can interact with children online or offline. So like that, do we have certain processes, policies in place, right? Because it is highly secure area and activities that we do, because we also say that when it comes to litigations, it is very high, right? So if there is security breaches, something like that happen, we can get sued. Any views from you guys? Any examples that you have in this? So you need to structure your answer properly and look at what is the question. The question was about security, and then we are looking at, well, how can this be bridged? Okay, it can be bridged through these, what we offer. How is it offered? It is offered by these parties, and these parties come into contact And then, therefore, we look at mitigation activities. Now, one way is physically how we mitigate. Now, you can answer this whole thing using a TARA model as well, right? You can answer this using a TARA model, as well as you can use the CIMA risk analysis model to answer this, because it gives you the questions, right? It will give you a good structure in how to answer the questions. Any thoughts, comments from you, Anna?
None from me.
Right. So before we close, any other comments from Kumari?
No, Anju.
Right.
I'm fine.
Okay. Alan?
All good.
Okay.
It's not a comment, but I wasn't able to join yesterday's session. And
Right.
Can I?
It's
can
there
you
in
upload
the yes.
It's already there.
It's already there. You can access. I
Okay.
believe if you guys have been given the link to YouTube, so just go there, and
Okay.
you will see it. Gavin, any comments from you or thoughts?
Anju, on this risk management process, risk
Yes.
management,
Yeah.
that day, when we had in this ERM process.
Sorry,
Enterprise
I
risk
didn't hear
management
you.
process.
Sandy
Now,
has
would
said
this be,
what?
Sandy has provided us an ERM process, enterprise risk management process. Where
Yes, follow that. Follow that as
so,
well.
yeah, so that would be the, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be your high level, that's the process that the company follows. And
Yeah.
the model will be used, TARA model can be used for the risk assessment.
Correct. Yes.
So you
Yeah.
identify environment, identify the risk factor, risk assessment time, the TARA model can come through. Then you do your risk tolerance settings, risk response, and it goes, it's an ongoing process.
Correct.
So, if a question comes up saying that what kind of a risk management process should the company, so maybe we can bring in saying that this CRM process, because risk management should be an ongoing process.
Yes, of course. It's an ongoing process. It's not one time.
Yeah, because here they talk about monthly, quarterly. So maybe we can bring in the TARA model saying that there's some risk, tolerance levels or risk assessment, the severity of the risk, this could be reviewed. And
Correct.
the owner, they talk about the board. So I don't know, maybe it's maybe a smaller company where, very short, smaller level, not much of levels in the management.
But we don't know, Gavin. Now, it depends, right? That's a good observation. Now, because you have risk committees, right? You as corporate governance, you need to have risk committees, right? That report to the board. So this is you're quite right. So, and also if you look at it from a business angle, our risks are pretty high in this, right? So it might be appropriate that you have, and it doesn't say that they have a separate risk committee or a risk department per se, right? Because generally you will have, like for an example, oil and gas, right? You will have a risk, basically a department who will manage this for across the organization, right? It's important they have it, and they run this whole process. Like you said, it's an ongoing thing. It's not one time, because environment changes and you need to constantly monitor what's going on.
Exactly, because
Yes.
they have given this table. I presume there will be a question on risk management question.
Correct.
One of the ways.
Yes, this is why I want to touch on this today and then set up some questions as well. I'll have a chat with Sandy and see where we can set up some joint questions, because it's good that you are prepared for this and you know how to structure your answers, right? Whatever way they ask the question. Yeah. So because they have given the risks registers. They're going to ask this in some kind of variant in whatever way, but you need to understand how to approach it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So, like I said, we urge you to start writing your answers, the full answers, from now on, and then just send it to us via email. Send it to me, and myself and Sandy will share it and we'll give you comments. All right. So we will stop for today and have a good evening, and we expect some answers from you guys.